Right, here we are, the Icon A5. We're at Castricum glider field in the province of North Holland in the Netherlands, and we're going to fly to the town that I grew up in, the village I grew up in, Akersloot, near the lake Alkmaardermeer, and I'd like to try and land there. Never landed an amphibian plane before, so we'll see how that goes. It should be fun. Right, let's see how this goes. I do expect that I won't be particularly good at this. It appears we have flaps down at 15-degree angle, so we shouldn't have too much trouble taking off. 55 airspeed. I didn't actually look at what the plane is supposed to be able to handle here, but we're off the ground, so flaps up to 0 and perhaps a bit more power. Definitely feels a bit more like a sewing machine, a very light aircraft. And we're going to want to take the gear up, so there go the wheels, and we should now be able to land on the water, which is the idea, right? So on our right we can see Castricum, and that's where I went to secondary school. And then just ahead we see Limmen, which is between Castricum, or the dunes that we've just left, and the North Sea coast, which we've just left, and at Alkmaardermeer there, which is the lake you can see in the distance. There are a couple of smaller lakes surrounding, and on the port wingtip there's a tiny little lake called Het Die. In fact, I think this must be Castricum right here underneath us, and then Limmen is that what I'm pointing at with my left wingtip now, that little village there. This below us is definitely looks more like Castricum, with the secondary school I think just underneath us here. And then we've got a bit of overspeed. Let's take that out before the plane blows up. And you can already see the lake. Now that town over there is Uitgeest, and you can see the road and the railway going between Uitgeest, which I've pretty much now covered with my wings, and Heemskerk, which lies to the south of the railway there. And so the bottom part here of the lake is Uitgeestermeer, and there is a nice little leisure beach there. You can just see it with the trees near the lake there. And there's a marina, sort of I'm pointing at it now with the propeller. You can just see the boats. There's also a marina further east, on another part of the lake there. So there's lots of marinas and lots of leisure, and this little part of the lake here is ideal for learning how to sail. It's quite calm and a nice place for kids to sail, windsurf, water ski, all that kind of stuff. So along here we are flying up to the next marina. You can just see it on the right here in a nice little area of the lake, and then we'll go north towards Akersloot. Now this was always the part of the lake that was a little bit difficult to negotiate when windsurfing. Flying over it, it doesn't seem to take all that long, but it's very choppy along here, and the wind is in the right direction because it's southwesterly, you would have it behind you when you are traveling north like this. But then coming back to Uitgeest would take a long time because you have to tack up, and it was quite a lot of hard work. The little island you see coming up just here on the end of this land outcropping, that little island there is called Start Island, which is where the starting tower is for the sailing races. And so you would sail from this island back to the leisure beach that I am pointing the aircraft at now. So this leisure beach is the leisure beach that is in Akersloot, just here. On the right hand side, that large building is a large hangar for doing a lot of work here in the marina where boats are being reconstructed and things like that. And this is the village of Akersloot where I grew up, and you can see the marina there. There's several marinas, I think there are 3 in Akersloot, and along this road here you'll see the handball, which is quite a popular sport in the Netherlands. The tennis courts there on the left, clay tennis courts, and then the football fields just here. These buildings are not actually there. These are just clubhouses that should be way lower than what they are here in the simulator. So let's go north again and see if we can find the windmill, which is at the north of the village, and then we'll try to land on the lake. Land on the lake should be alright. I've never done this before. I'm going to take my time over it. You can see the canal going north there. That's the Noord-Hollandse Canal, and that takes you all the way to Den Helder, past the city of Alkmaar. You can see more marinas here underneath, and another one right here, another marina. So there's a lot of leisure. Along here should be this. Let me see. This should be where the windmill is, and it's there it is. That little round patch. I'll fly by it again, and you'll see a little round building on there. It seems the sim replaces windmills, like those old-fashioned windmills that we're so familiar with in the Netherlands. It seems to replace them with like what look like roundhouses, with sort of a conical roof on top. Like a yurt with conical roofs on top. Let's see if we can make it back to the windmill. I'll have to find the road. Here we go. And then I imagine I must have just flown over it again. Or I've got the wrong road actually. This is the road that takes you out of the village towards the fields where all the lilies are grown. And so this little lake on the side here with some lovely houses on its banks is a small lake that we used to windsurf and skate on quite a lot actually. In winter it's where most of the village would go to do the Dutch to do some skating. So we'd be speed skating and playing ice hockey and doing all kinds of stuff. It was really quite good. So let's fly out of the north of the village again and see if we can spot, now I've flown over my house just now, see if we can spot the windmill. And there is beyond the next house, so the house that's kind of in my propeller now, is a little round area. You can just see it there, and that's where the windmill is, that red building, just we're flying over it now. So odd looking structure for a windmill. I'd love to put an actual windmill in there. Let's see if we can land this thing on the lake. Never landed an amphibious aircraft before. Am I stalling? Power. Oh look, and we've got some air traffic there. Excellent. I'm not sure if I have real life traffic on at the moment, but we're really close to Schiphol Amsterdam, so maybe I'll just show you and fly there. There appears to be sort of a little waterfall in the water there. I don't know why that happens. We're actually flying over the shipping lane, which goes through the lake and to Amsterdam. So we wouldn't just be able to land here and interrupt the shipping lane. But what I'll try is land to the right hand side of this piece of water. Just take all the power out, idle the engine and see how we do. And then I'll take off again and fly us to Schiphol Airport and see how we do there. Am I going way too fast? Probably. Maybe I should put some flaps in and just give it, really slow it down. I don't know if I need spoilers for that. I could, I suppose. Oh, this is not too bad. It did bounce, but just give it a moment. There we are. That is not bad at all. I'm quite happy with that. I don't know how long it is going to take me to actually take off from here. Oh, and the rudder also works. Perfect. Okay, so I am going to point it at somewhere quite far into the distance and see if I can take off. Does this thing have like water brakes? Do we actually come to a stop? This is brilliant, I love it. First water landing in Flight Simulator. Okay, let's go to Amsterdam. Full power and see if it'll take off or if it will ditch, I don't know. It's not very choppy, so we will hopefully just take off. 40 knots coming up, 45, 50, and rotate. Yeah, there we go. That's lovely. Take a little bit of power out, and airspeed dropping, a bit more power, and take the flaps up, and set our direction for Amsterdam. Now Amsterdam is not very far away, but it's probably about 10 minutes. What we see there is Zaandam or Krommenie or something like that. And I'll just have a look. Yeah, it's Krommenie. So actually this must be Westeinderplassen that we're coming up to. You can see that the town is completely wrapped in by waterways, and we're going to follow the left hand waterway just there, so that we will fly over Zaandam. And it definitely takes a bit of a turn here above Wormerveer. And we should be able to just point ourselves in kind of, well, I should probably kind of go south-southeast. On a 150 degree heading. That will probably point us dead on to Amsterdam Central Station, the train station. I'll trim this out a little bit, see how we do. So yeah, that's Zaandam right there. You can see the motorway running through it, and in the distance we can see the port of Amsterdam just to our sort of on a southerly heading from here. We would we're still climbing. I'm just gonna see if I can trim that out. So Zaandam has a lot of industry, and there's a lot of chocolate industry in Zaandam actually. Traditionally, from the 17th century onwards, I think the Dutch imported quite a lot of cocoa from its colonies, and the chocolate industry hasn't really ever slowed down. Some really good chocolate comes from the Netherlands. So we're seeing Zaandam here, that's Zaandam right underneath us, and you can see that little triangular shaped bit of land there, the little island in the river as it were, or in the canal, and it has a marina. Just about see that, and maybe we can drop a little and get you a bit closer. So Zaandam is just north of Amsterdam really. If you told people that it was part of the city, they'd probably believe you. And we're going to follow the river down into the center. And you can already see Westerkerk there. So this is the big famous church in Amsterdam. And then further to the left, that water you see there is IJsselmeer, which used to be called Zuiderzee. So meer is lake and zee is sea. And ever since it has been dammed off, that's now a lake. So a large part of the Netherlands, central Netherlands, is actually formed by that lake. So there's Amsterdam Centraal Railway Station. It looks rather good, I think. On our left, or just to the left of Amsterdam Central Station, is Amsterdam north of Amsterdam. And then pretty much where you see Central Station is the old town with the famous canals. There's a lot to do, of course, in Amsterdam. I don't know the city very well myself, but it is a lovely place to visit, and there are, of course, lots of cultural treasures there, with the Van Gogh Museum, and you can see the motorway here dipping under the water. That's the, is that the Koen Tunnel? I think it might be. Let's just see. And that tunnel takes you towards the north, or into town if you're coming from the north, obviously. So we're really going to drop now. I'll see if I can get some altitude out of this plane and fly over Central Station and perhaps towards the Westerkerk. Like many dock areas, this area that we're flying over in Amsterdam has been revamped. So the docks that were close to the city are now more in use for other activities like leisure activities, museums and things like that. I think the piece of land you see there on the left wingtip, under the left wingtip, is now a museum. I could be wrong. Just looking on Google Maps here to get a bit of guidance, and there's Central Station, which is looking rather nice. So let's see if we can get down to around Westerkerk. Westerkerk seems to have been modelled properly, which is very nice to see, actually. And when the game has to render all these buildings, it's starting to get a bit choppy. But you know what? It's still fairly good to fly. I think the Anne Frank house is quite near the Westerkerk. I can't remember exactly where in relation to it. But you can see the canals right here, and of course lots of boats on the canals, which is rather nice. I'm gonna have to power up a bit in a minute. And then over here are some of the parks in the city. I should really get somebody to talk about this who knows a bit more about the city. This might be Vondelpark, and then on the end of Vondelpark here you would have Van Gogh Museum. And there's Schiphol Airport just come into view. I won't fly there, but I would like to have a look. Yeah, that's Vondelpark, and I would like to have a look if we can perhaps fly towards Badhoevedorp, because recently Badhoevedorp has been changed. The village or the town used to have the A9 motorway run through it, and I wonder if this has now been updated and you can see the A9 running around the town, which would be nice. In some ways it would probably feel like the A9 has been, and this must be, is this the A9 or the A10? There's the Vondelpark. There's Vondelpark, okay, that's the A10 that we've just crossed, and I should come on to the Nieuwe Meer, which is that lake you can see there, and then what we'll do is we'll follow the motorway, which is the A4. This must be Rye, is that right? Maybe not. And this is the Nieuwe Meer, and when we will join up with near a very big junction, you can just see it up ahead, and this big junction will lead us onto the new road. It's rather interesting. Well, it's interesting to me anyway, having grown up in the area, or at least having driven this road quite a lot. It's rather interesting to see. So yes, it does appear as if the road follows around Badhoevedorp. So the A4 carries on south, and we're going to pick up the A10, which is going west. You can see how the old A10 ran across the landscape here. There's a big corridor here splitting the landscape here. This is the old motorway, and that's now being developed. New neighborhoods are being put there, and actually my family has moved into one of the houses there. New primary schools, new shops, very interesting. So this is the old A9, and you can see the new A9 running along further south of the town. That's all very interesting. And what's also interesting is that this photography does not have the new developments on it, so it's still a bit of a sandbox down there. Very interesting. Maybe we should try to land another day, perhaps. I'm going to find some water to land on. So there is a lake not too far from here that we should be able to land on, and it's near Kaag, and Kaag is quite a nice place. Actually what we'll do is we'll fly towards pretty much due south from here and try and spot the Westeinderplassen. So actually And what we're seeing here is the Central Canal. Also, we're crossing the flight path of the of one of the runways here in Schiphol Airport. You can see that runway right there. And then there's a tower to our right, which has been built specifically for the runway that is even further out. And you can see that runway on the right hand side. So taxiing from that runway to the terminal building probably takes about 15-20 minutes. It's a ridiculous distance from the terminal. And you cross the water when you taxi back. As you can see there, there's a bridge. The bridge right there. There's the very newest runway for Schiphol Airport. So the airport stretches quite a long way. And ahead of us is a town called Hoofddorp right here, which means main village, and it is the main village for this area that we're flying over at the moment. And this area is called the Alkmaardermeer, which means the Haarlemmer Lake. And as you can see, this is no longer a lake, this is now a polder. All this land has been reclaimed. We are in Schiphol airspace, so we're bound to find some aircraft flying around here. That one seems to be going quite low. I don't know what it is doing, circling over Hoofddorp, but that's rather interesting. We'll just follow the main lake and then see if we can get to Westeinderplassen, which will be, after we've passed Hoofddorp, Westeinderplassen will be to the southwest, sorry, the southeast of us. I can already see it actually. So we'll just head for that and then set the plane down on the water. As you can see over there, there's a large spread of water. That's Westeinderplassen. To the north of it, on the north shore of that lake, is Aalsmeer, which is the large, which is where the large flower auction houses are, and where all of the exports of the Dutch tulips go. Behind us, or sort of to the south west of us right now, is where the main farming area for tulips is, and it's called the Bollenstreek, which literally means the bulb region. We might fly over that another time. I wonder if these aerial photographs were taken sort of at the end of April, then we might see actually some colourful fields. So we'll be a bit hit and miss. You'll see that a lot of the Netherlands is cultivated, lots of straight lines, especially in these areas where the land has been reclaimed. And so we're coming up to the smaller villages. Again, lots of marinas you'll see here, lots of leisure, sailing, water skiing, and these bits of land here are interesting actually, because they are basically peat bog, and you can see how the peat has been farmed in these long strips of land. So there would have been dry pieces of land, and this village has a single road on which all the people would live, and then they would go out perpendicular from the road to harvest the peat, which was obviously used to light fires and things like that. And eventually that peat would have depleted, and now you're left with these islands that look like ribbons in the water. It's quite interesting, I think. So let's take the speed out of this. Probably want some flaps again, and I'm idling. I'm not particularly aiming for anywhere. I'm just going to set it down on the water, and that will be it. This is a very interesting area. You can clearly see that there are buildings there, and there are definitely roads, but the engine decided to flood the place, which is not entirely accurate. This part on the right hand side of us is not flooded. Although, well, maybe it is actually. Lots of islands, and Google Maps also shows that these are actually all waterways, and so you would need a boat to get to these little islands. Very interesting. What do I know? You think you know your country, and then you find out that actually some of these places are still flooded. It looks lovely though. I think it's probably a very nice place to visit. I must be honest, I've only ever visited Aalsmeer and the surrounding area to buy water sports equipment. So you're on the edge of the lake, and all the chandlers and windsurf shops and sailing shops are all there. So we're going to have to feather off. I'm going to assume this is at sea level. We're that close to the sea. So I'm just going to have to pull up the plane. There's no shadow on the water. Why isn't the plane showing a shadow? Let's just dunk it. There we go. That's nice. Bouncy, bouncy. And we have arrived. Let's see if I can, there's no ramp here, so how would you, I guess you would need a ramp to drive it up onto the land. If I drive into the land now, it will probably register a crash, so let's not do that. Let's just go up to the shoreline here and call it a day. Thank you for watching. That was Castricum to Aalsmeer.